Please welcome to the stage Utah Poet Laureate Lisa Bickmore.
Good morning. I'm so pleased to be here and to read 4 poems for you. And if I have less time than I think, 3 poems. First poem is called 7 Clouds. On the dark side of the mountain, they're moving the god out of the shrine. There is a shroud. The people lower their eyes for the passage. What is it, this being swathed in a white cloth? A sword, a vessel glazed red, an icon with garments fashioned from a bitter bark, a face made of ink. The people press for the few weeks of its absence to see the habitation. The great roping serpent braid of straw is the massing lintel of the anterooms. And an 8-fold fence keeps something in and almost everyone out of the sacred place, now much diminished from its legend. The pillars excavated, now naked to the air, as if the temple were to be truly measured from these remains. The posts that stirred the sea and made the islands stilled now, as if they were just things to see. But if seeing is what to do, then I should go in winter, see for myself the wall blanking the spot where the god once was, and the clouds painted, billowing on the ceiling. Then after the chanting, after the twig of sakaki on the altar, I will drink in one swallow the cup of rice wine, so that I may draw nearer but not go in, see the mountain but not climb it. The god moves just once every 60 years, that is, once a lifetime. Oh, hi. This poem is called The Road Out of Lewiston. That's Lewiston, Idaho. At the point the horizon erases what we can see, I think the road must rise into the sky, invisible, circling back to where it began, wherever it began. This door's tape, an endless loop droning ahead to the start, from Riders on the Storm to LA Woman. Each time it clicks over, I say to myself, the beginning. Like this trip to Los Angeles, the origin is no place until the return, when I say where I started. That boy sitting on the margin of the freeway with the cardboard sign in his thumb. He is returning or leaving. One can't tell from his position there, his place on the circuit of travel. Now he waits on the road out of Lewiston, past the confluence of the Snake and the Clearwater, and I see him near the ledge, banked sharp against the sky, a curve so fast and so high. I think, if the guardrail gives, I'll swing out wide, break into an open blue ascent. Thank you. We're halfway done. 2 more poems. This one is called March, as in the month we're in. All day, the thread stitching the spangles to the woolly sky has come unloosed. Some current moves it at a slant, but otherwise, unhurried and without force, it falls. At the window, the blades of the blinds graph its glimmer, its descent. I like to hold it whole. The neighbor still lights his Christmas wreath, his white-starred topiaries, mid-February, and mugo pines illuminate their dim torchieres. From November till now, how many dogs have misplaced their barks? Dark-haunched, white-chested, this one assumes a bulldog stance, his growl burring in a voiceless throat. Let this drifting take its time. As the unseen bird calls, beagle bays, a gutter collects its flip-tops and soda cans, darker and wetter. At 6, There's a flare in the western gloom, and still at the northern walks and at north-faced walls, a white dust of it persists, and still an icy slip where I walk. Let the next thing hold its peace. Let it fall, little by little. Let the pale cipher plume. Let these paillettes gleam and melt where the poplars, shorn in autumn, still shoot skyward, and the leaves that never fell in a warmer than usual winter still cling like dumb, still swallows. This is a newer one, and it's about this field that is in the back of our house. It's when we moved into it, we thought, well, they're going to develop that soon, but we've been there more than 20 years, and they have not. So it's called From a Field. The always open eye of the window watches the road behind the field, even when we are sleeping. I don't know where the horses or horse go at night, but just 2 days ago, we saw, tall in the saddle, a man riding a golden horse, hat on his head, reins in hand. For what reason? Who knows? I think I was thinking about him just before I woke up, about the field and whatever the rider will plant there. Some years corn, others alfalfa, and the pheasants we sometimes see there, and the hawks, and sometimes even more horses. I don't know what the actual dream was just before I got up. The sky's still gray, but also lighter than when I'd at last closed my books and my eyes. I think the field may be the dream, its goings-on soaked in irrigation water, and the flag in the grocery parking lot whipping its stripes in all weather, also holding that wet residue. The field and window border my dream life. The acre, the crop, the animal, the plow. Thank you so much for having me.
Can we have another round of applause for the Utah Poet Laureate?
Just a quick note, folks. You can hire her to come to your school and do poetry readings or works with students for just $200. It's an incredible thing here in the state of Utah, and we're very lucky to have her do it. So thank you so much to Lisa for coming out and reading some poetry. I loved how quiet it was, by the way. Did you notice that?
Right, let's try this again.
All right.
Welcome to day 2. I'm Gretchen Zaitsev, and I'm the president of UELMA.
And I'm Matt Winters. I'm the president of UCET. We're so excited to have you here today joining us for day 2. We have a lot of great sessions and great material going on all day.
But if you missed it yesterday or you stayed up too late to remember, we have this for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh. A big thank you to all of you for being stars of our new video. We're going to put that out soon. But also to Cody Plumhoff from the UCET board for cutting that together all throughout the conference yesterday. So let's give Cody a big round of applause, folks.
Not only can you get great learning here today, but you can also qualify for SUU, USBE, and licensure points. So those of you who, like me, need all of that in your life, there will be an email coming out after conference, or you can go to the UCET at ucet.org conference page for more information.
Also, that QR code leads you directly to the page that you need to go to learn more about credit as well.
And if you miss this QR code, you can see the rolling slides at the UEN booth immediately inside the expo hall.
Absolutely. Just a reminder, folks, how many of you guys won a prize yesterday? That's awesome. I know a few of you stayed late and played some trivia with Carl Hooker. Anybody win a prize there? Yeah. Somebody approached me and said, I didn't know I was playing board games with Eric Kurtz until this morning. That's awesome. Today, we're still giving away prizes, folks. Yes! If you would like to join the Goose Chase, it's not too late. Feel free to jump in. QR code there and the join code are ready to roll. We have some great prizes today, including some of our partners, including Scribble, are giving away some great prizes like Scribble with a TV, folks. They're giving away a TV. So be prepared for that with all of that. If you haven't been playing the Goose Chase, it's a great way to engage in the conference. You learn about all types of sessions that are out there that you may not have heard of or you may not have seen on the schedule. So make sure that you get on there as soon as possible and win some prizes.
UELMA is pleased to announce that our featured speaker, Jarrett Lerner, will be signing books in the expo hall at the author signing tables beginning at 10:15 today. So that's before his featured speaker event later this afternoon. So if you want to see Jarrett, see him this morning. And we're very excited to announce that the Utah Ambassador for Young People's Literature, Jennifer Nielsen, will be signing books after the Intellectual Freedom panel beginning at 11:15.
Just a quick reminder, folks, we have voting going on today for UCET board and UELMA board as well. She'll be talking about that here in just a second. You can scan this QR code and vote. We have, again, a record number, 17 people running for board, so we want to make sure we get a lot of votes out there. Anyone here at the conference, regardless of whether you've traditionally come to UELMA or UCET, you can vote for UCET board. We'd love to have your voice in there. Scan the QR code. You are ready to roll.
UELMA, we also have a slate of candidates for our board for next year. We also are reconsidering our constitution. So if you would like a voice in whether or not we change the name of UELMA to the Utah School Library Association, please vote.
Awesome. Good luck.
As part of the UELMA tradition, we typically hold a service project during our conference, and we are inviting our UCET friends to join with us this year for our conference service project. We are collecting donations for Operations Literacy's book drop. Operation Literacy works tirelessly to support student book ownership by providing books to students in Title I schools. If you can and are willing to donate to this great effort, we ask that you join us in supporting book ownership for our students here in Utah. There's more information about this effort available at the UCET UELMA booth right inside the expo hall. I would like to welcome you to my read era. When I started my position as a district library media specialist in 2021, people asked me what I did for my job, and I told them that I support school librarians who in turn support students and classroom teachers. In 2022, when people asked me what I did for my job, I told them that I read legal decisions and draft library material reconsideration policies. This year, when people ask me what I do for my job, I tell them this, that I solve problems and preserve democracy. In my opinion, there are two solvable problems. One is that it's not that our students can't read, it's not that our students don't read, it's that our students can't read. According to recent test data, 58% of our third grade students are reading below grade level. Of that vulnerable population, almost 70,000 of them are students who are loved in a language other than English, or are atypical students who require special accommodations in order to reach their potential. Students who cannot read are more likely to be unsuccessful across all content areas and to be unable to move forward in their professional and personal goals. Problem number two, our students are inheriting the most complex information landscape in the history of the world. Our youngest students are arriving in school having spent hundreds of hours on screens. The typical student receives their own phone in the 5th grade, and 66% of our students are receiving news and information solely through Facebook, TikTok, X, and YouTube. The problem with rhythmically driven content is that it provides for polarization and mis and disinformation. But I believe that these problems are solvable. School librarians and classroom teachers who work together to teach critical thinking skills are the answer to these problems. We know that students learn to read in the classroom, but they practice reading in the library. In our district, since August of 2021, students have checked out books 1.25 million times. And we know that in classrooms where the teachers are working directly with librarians, that we are seeing positive, measurable growth for our multilingual students. Students who identify as readers are more apt to be successful in their career path and educational pursuits. School librarians are information specialists. That's our content area. We teach students how to locate, evaluate, analyze, use, create, and share information. Students who can access and critically review information are able to make positive decisions which lead to positive social action. We ask that you join us in this work. It takes a village. Partnering with parents, the school librarians, sitting next to you in your buildings, ask you to join us in this essential work, that we help create the future we want and that our students deserve. Thank you very much.
Attention educational technology specialists, school technology specialists, and innovative learning coaches. Whatever your title is in your school, we have a community for you. Consider joining the 3rd cohort of the Utah Tech Leaders Network, or because we love abbreviations in education, the UTTLN. The UTTLN is designed to grow the skills of EdTech coaches who support instructional practices of personalized and competency-based learning in their schools or districts. Through a mix of hands-on activities, expert guidance, and collegial collaboration, UTTLN will equip you with practical strategies in knowledge, in leadership, coaching, and technology to help you support all of your school community. This unique year-long learning opportunity will bring together digital leaders from across the state to build a community and a shared vision to prepare participants to support future-driven initiatives in their schools and districts. Utah Tech Leaders Network, just one of the many ways that UEN networks for education. Learn more and apply at uen.org/UCET.
Since 2015, Lauren Merkley has taught AP English, Language, Composition, Creative Writing, and English at Cottonwood High School in Murray, Utah. In 2019, she was named a Granite District Excel Teacher, Granite District Teacher of the Year, and the 2020 Utah Teacher of the Year.
My face has never been so big. All right. I want to tell you a story. Well, actually, it's a court case. True story. The year is 1951. We're in the state of Washington. The court case is Garrett v. Daley. And I'm going to give you the facts of the case. The facts of the case are not in dispute, and I'm actually going to ask you to take a little bit of a position on this. So the next slide has a lot of words. There's a 5-year-old. His name is Brian. He's with his aunt. His aunt is about to sit down in a chair. Brian sees this. He pulls the chair out from under his aunt, and his aunt falls. She breaks her hip. She suffers $11,000 in medical damages. She then turns around and sues Brian for battery. Families are forever, right? So she sued her 5-year-old nephew for battery. Battery, in the legal sense, has to meet 4 conditions. It has to be an intentional act that involves contact, that is harmful or offensive, and causes damages. Every single one of those has to be true for it to be considered legally battery. Okay. So my question to you is, should Brian, 5-year-old Brian, be found liable or responsible for battery? And I'm actually going to give you like 30 seconds. You can talk to someone next to you, or if you don't want to do that, you can just think to yourself. Take 30 seconds. Should Brian be liable for battery? 5-year-old Brian, take it away. All right, that's not nearly enough time for this question, but I'm going to ask you to make some noise if you think Brian should be liable for battery. Those monsters. Okay, make some noise if you think Brian should not be liable for battery. Oh my gosh, thank you. I feel like you're clapping for me. Okay. This is one of the many thought experiments and case studies that I use to start my English classes. I'm a high school English teacher. And in using these, my goal is to introduce, embrace, and fully welcome into my classroom tension. We know what tension is. It's a physics term when multiple forces are acting on an object in opposing directions. And often we think of tension as something negative, right? Something that might lead to division or that might lead to something breaking or snapping. But the thing about tension, nope, back. The thing about tension, and this is found footage of my husband at the gym, the thing about tension is that it actually creates growth. If anyone's done any kind of strength training, you know that hypertrophy, which is the process of growing a muscle, is what happens when you increase time under tension. The more time a muscle spends in resistance, the stronger it gets. And so the same is true in our classrooms and in our libraries and in our instructional coaching sessions. The more time we spend under tension, the stronger we're going to get. Now, a distinction needs to be made. We have all been in classrooms, whether we've overseen them or been a part of the discussion, where a tense conversation, a controversial conversation gets really hot, right? It gets really out of hand. People might have feelings get hurt. People's identities might be offended. Voices might be raised. And that is no wonder, because the language we use for argument and disagreement and tension is deeply rooted in the language of war. Think about it. I have an opponent. I need to launch a counterattack or a counter-argument. My goal is to win and to get them on my side. What I try and teach my students, and what I'm going to propose to us today at a tech conference, is a very low-tech, uniquely human strategy, is to think about tension as being a positive, productive source, and to think about it as a dance, not a war. A dance is fluid. A dance is creative. A dance is full of curiosity. And I'm going to give you an example and maybe a scaffold that you can use, I think, at any level and on any topic to make sure that we are dancing, not warring in our classrooms. For many years, the very first day of my class, I asked my student this question from the ages: is a hot dog a sandwich? And I'm going to tell you how we structured this conversation for an incredibly low-stakes question. But this is the same structure that we used later in the year when we're talking about race, when we're talking about gender, when we're talking about capital punishment. And I would submit that you could use this scaffold at any level. So this question's absurd, right? No one's identity is wrapped up in whether a hot dog is a sandwich. So it's a safe question to start with. I ask every student to make at least a one-sentence argument in response to this question. It can be as simple or as complex as they want. But the catch is, before they make their argument, they have to repeat in their own words what the person before them said. This does a couple of things. Number one, it slows the conversation down. Keeps temperatures from rising and blood pressures from skyrocketing, even about a hot dog and a sandwich, which actually is a very spirited conversation if you have this in your class. Number two, it forces students to listen, right? A dance has multiple partners. There's give and there's take. And number three, and perhaps most importantly, it forces a student to see their position in relationship to another position. Their position is not in a vacuum. They are in a dance. They are in a give and they are in a take. So that's one way to maybe help us create a little more dance, a little less war in these tense conversations. But I would also submit that a key moment comes at the end of any tense discussion, where we want to declare a winner, right? We want to count the number of people on each side, want to say who has the best argument. Again, that is the language of war. And in a world that is rife with tension and rife with disagreement and rife with negative hot moments, to create the kind of futures that we want in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms, I think we need to change that narrative. So here I propose 4 questions you could ask at the end of any discussion, any tense conversation, any debate that would help us turn it into a dance. Number 1, what's the weakest part of your argument? Number 2, what's the strongest part of your opponent's argument? Number 3, how do you think differently about this question or about this issue after hearing others' viewpoints? I'm not asking whether you changed your mind. I'm not asking you what side you're on. I'm asking you how your thinking has evolved. How are you in the dance, right? Your thinking might be fluid. Your position might be fluid. And last, what questions do you still have? A war has a beginning and an end. A dance is ongoing. A dance is joyful. A dance is an act of curiosity and creativity. So I want to end by telling you that I'm so sorry, but Brian was found liable for battery in the court case. So those 3 people at the beginning, the court agreed. People are cheering. Oh no, okay. The 3 people, the court agreed with you. But much bigger than Brian, or much bigger than this case, is thinking about how these kinds of questions, these questions that compel us in opposite directions, towards a 5-year-old, towards an elderly aunt with a broken hip, that how we deal with these questions can help us create the present that we want in our classrooms and can help us create the future that we want outside of our classrooms if we commit to creating more dance and less war. Thank you very much.
Behind the scenes, the Utah Education Network is working to ensure that Utah educators have access to the best tools to prepare students for a bright future. UEN provides access to rigorously selected, specially negotiated, value-focused software solutions, including Canvas, Nearpod, Adobe, and more. As a consortium member, Utah schools benefit from leading programs that enable innovative teaching and learning. Last year, we provided access to 25 educational technology software products to enhance in-person, online, and hybrid learning for Utah students. From digital literacy courses to assistive technologies that support diverse learning needs, UEN selects a wide array of classroom solutions to ensure whether you're a small district or the largest in the state, you have access to cutting-edge technology. Preparing students for tomorrow, today. See available consortium licensed software now at uen.org/software. Just one of the many ways that UEN networks for education.
Darren Parry is the former chairman and councilman for the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. He is the author of The Bear River Massacre, A Shoshone History, and teaches Native American history at Utah State University. He is on numerous boards, including PBS Utah and Utah Humanities.
Good morning. Once upon a time, in the beautiful lands of Utah, there lived a wise old wolf. His name was Gray Cloud. Gray Cloud was not only respected among the other animals for his wisdom, but he was known for his passion for teaching and learning. One day, as Gray Cloud was walking through the forest, he came across a gathering of animals near a stream. There were the bears, the rabbits, the owl, the birds, and even a skunk named Flower. Of course, it was Flower. They were all talking about their dreams and aspirations and their future. Gray Cloud, being curious, approached them and asked, "What brings you together today?" The wise old owl replied, "We are sharing stories of inspiration and pride. Each one of us is talking about something that makes us very proud." Gray Cloud nodded with interest. "I would love to hear your stories." Flower the skunk was first to speak. "I am proud of my playfulness," she said. The bears were next. They talked about their strength and their unit as a family, while the birds spoke of their ability to soar high above the trees. Finally, it was Gray Cloud's turn. He began, "I am proud to be an educator." The animals all looked at him very curiously. Gray Cloud continued, "As an educator, I have the privilege of helping young minds grow and discover the wonders of the world. Just like each of you has your own unique talents and strengths, every student has their own potential that is waiting to be unlocked." He shared stories about how he had taught the young cubs to navigate the forest safely, how he helped the rabbits learn the art of communication through storytelling, and how he encouraged the birds to spread their wings and explore beyond their nests. In teaching others, I not only impart knowledge, but I also teach values of respect, empathy, and unity. Every time a student succeeds, I feel a deep sense of pride, knowing that I played a small part in their journey. As they neared the end of being together, Great Cloud looked at his diverse group of animals, and he felt a swell of pride in his heart. He was not just a wolf. He was an educator, a guide, a mentor to the next generation, shaping a better future for all who walk the lands of Utah. In Utah, there is a growing recognition of the importance of incorporating Native American perspectives into our education system. This shift is positively impacting students across the state. One example is the collaboration between tribal leaders, educators, government officials to develop culturally relevant curriculum and programs that honor the rich heritage of Native American communities. Through initiatives like cultural exchange programs, storytelling sessions by tribal elders, and the inclusion of indigenous knowledges into various subjects, Utah's education system is fostering greater cultural awareness, respect, and understanding among students of all backgrounds. This approach enhances academic learning, but also promotes empathy and appreciation for diversity and a sense of shared heritage among Utah's youth. As a tribal leader, it is wonderful to see the positive steps towards inclusive education here in Utah, regardless of what the legislators tell us, where students can learn and grow while honoring traditions and wisdom of Native American peoples. As teachers, we need to become master storytellers. Stories always make subjects so more relatable. Native people use stories to disseminate knowledge. We use stories to teach values. Stories are magical, and they convey important lessons about life. Students will always forget facts and figures about any given subject, but they will never forget how they felt when they hear a story. When I was in grade school, I remember the teacher telling me how America was the great melting pot of the world, where all people are welcome. I think that it was meant to encourage national unity by promoting this shared identity. I am not so sure I agree with the melting pot theory anymore, especially when we consider whose identities are being melted away and whose remain. Maybe it's time we start celebrating this rich cultural diversity within a country that has been supported by democratic principles. Our different cultural backgrounds make us who we are. After all, as a people, we can change our clothes, our politics, our marriages, and even our religion or philosophies. But we cannot change our grandfathers. So let us celebrate our unity and diversity, which I believe is our greatest strength. And our national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, let that be our guide. As we educate ourselves, we begin to create a space that allows us to have honest and open discussions that will allow us to talk about things that we have in common. Gandhi said that our greatest ability as human beings is not to change the world, but to change ourselves. But don't you think as we change ourselves, we will begin to change the world? The answers to racism, prejudice, and discrimination and hate will not come from our schools, the government, law enforcement, or dare I say our church. Solutions will come as we open our hearts to those whose lives are very different from our own, as we work to build genuine bonds of friendship, and as we begin to see each other as brothers and sisters and neighbors and friends. The wheels of justice should move the same for all of us. Dr. King said that hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. It's that kind of love that inspires all of us to do the rigorous work of building bridges of cooperation rather than walls of segregation and division. Oneness is not sameness in America. We must all learn to value our differences. Together, we have laid a foundation as educators for a bright future where every child can learn and thrive. Equipped with the knowledge and skill to navigate an ever-changing world, I invite every one of you to see beyond the successes of today and envision the possibilities for tomorrow. I hope we can continue to collaborate, to innovate, to dream big for the sake of our children. Our commitment to education is about nurturing minds, fostering understanding, and building bridges across diverse communities. Thank you for your dedication, your passion, your commitment to this cause. Let us continue this journey together, hand in hand, for the betterment of our children, our community, and our world. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, yes.
Yay.
Good morning.
Good morning. You need the slides on. Oh, yeah. Good morning. Wasn't everyone who just spoke this morning so amazing?
So inspired right
Yes.
now, and so just grateful to be here with all of you this morning. Thank you, Utah, for the invitation to allow us here and to bring us here. I got in late yesterday. Carolyn's been here since, I think, Monday.
Yes.
And so we've just had a wonderful time, and we're just happy to be here. So we're happy to keynote with you today and share with you about telegraphing the future and why intellectual freedom matters. My name is Becky Calzada. I am the District Library Coordinator in Leander, Texas, and incoming AASL President. What else? Let's see. I do too many things. I am part of the Intellectual Freedom Committee at ALA, and I also am on the policy core here. So I'm co-founding member of Freedom Fighters with my colleague here, Carolyn.
And I am Carolyn Foote, and I am, as Becky said, one of the co-founders of the Freedom Fighters. I'm a 29-year retired, rewired, I don't like saying retired, rewired librarian, and a former English teacher. And I was reflecting yesterday that in my family's own sort of version of Western expansion, we traveled all over the Southwest when I was growing up. And the last time I think I was in Salt Lake for any length of time, I was about 11. And my parents took us to the Salt Lake, and we actually floated on the Salt Lake. And so that's a very vivid memory for me. And I'm so happy to be back here and to have met so many amazing educators and librarians this week. And speaking of westward expansion, Utah is a state because of westward expansion and the growth that happens when people try to seek freedom, religious freedom, freedom of speech, the freedom to grow and explore and settle new areas that our country was really founded on. And that freedom has led people to innovate and grow and develop Salt Lake and the rest of Utah into what it is today. And so that idea of being able to have freedom of thought, First Amendment rights, all of that contributes to the innovation and growth of our communities and our state. And so first today we want to talk about how that idea of freedom helps ideas flourish and helps our students grow. So there's a lot of things Utah's known for, and one of them is connection, connecting the telegraph lines from east to the west, and basically the first internet where people could speak to each other quickly from across the country. And also, interestingly, it was a collaborative effort, much like the interwebs, because Utah's the only state where each city raised money itself and connected itself to the main telegraph line, which I found fascinating. So this state is all about connectivity and growth. And in fact, a lot of inventions came from Utah. The DVD, television, there's genome research, space research at the universities. So there are a lot of firsts and innovations here. But the one I think people know the best is the connection of the Transcontinental Railroad in Provo, Utah, and that was recently, not too long ago, the 150th anniversary. But it connected our country. But unfortunately, as we grow and develop, sometimes other people's freedoms get left behind, and our growth is built on the backs of other people. And one of the things about our history is we have to learn from our history so that we can have a better future and build the America that we all hope to live in. And unfortunately, with the railroad, Chinese and Irish workers, land that may have belonged to Native Americans, was part of this story. And so we want to introduce you to a student to whom this is very important.
So this is Christopher Lau, who I've met in some of our work with intellectual freedom. He reached out to talk to me about how to get a librarian in his school because he didn't have a librarian. But one of the things that he did was he launched a website and something called Unbanned Coolies. And so we're going to run this video so you can hear about why he started it and why this advocacy is important to him.
Hello everyone, I'm Christopher Lau, and I'm here to share with you the profound impact of my unique advocacy, Unbanned Coolies. The inspiration behind this advocacy comes from a children's book called Coolies. This book is where I saw characters that looked like me, my parents, and my grandparents. I found a connection to the culture and the struggles of Chinese immigrants. It was disheartening to learn that Coolies was on the list of banned books, which hit me hard, igniting a desire to take action. To address the pressing issue of book banning, I founded Unbanned Coolies, a platform that's making waves globally. Banning books is almost like erasing history. How will people know about the hard work Chinese immigrants went through in building the Transcontinental Railroad if Coolies is no longer on shelves? This doesn't just apply to Coolies, it applies to many other books out there. You see, books have an incredible power. They transport us to different worlds, bridge understandings, and nurture empathy. But today, some want to ban books, particularly those that tackle topics like LGBTQ+ experiences, racism, and diverse cultures. Banning these books isn't fair, especially when they help people understand themselves and their world. We need stories that reflect our diverse society. Imagine being told that a book about someone like you is unfit for schools.
And so,
Isn't he amazing?
isn't he so amazing? So you can find his website. He's got a YouTube channel too, and he's actually been interviewing a lot of authors who have had banned books. And I think he's like 15. He's so young, but he understands the importance of the perspectives and the stories. And so that's why it's so important to think about these things, because what's unsaid, what maybe is not told, those perspectives are probably and likely told in stories and in books. And so which takes us to our next big idea is access to reading fosters ideas. And so we know, Donalyn's been here, my friend, just love her to death. As she mentioned yesterday in her keynote, that we all are literacy leaders too. And so how we teach reading, how we demonstrate that love impacts the students that we work with. How we share about what we read influences them too. And so we want to be sure that students understand that reading can be transformative and not just about the activities, not just about the semantics of it all. We show them that reading is more than just indicators and more than just a test? Or do we help them to understand how reading connects us to language and how it can build empathy and also inspire us with ideas and things that we maybe never had known before? And so, of course, we also know that reading and through books can build a community, and those communities bring people together. We talk about things all the time. Students can share ideas. They can even share their questions and wonderings, and those can inspire them to go to additional resources to learn even more. And of course, finally, as teachers and as educators, how we feel about reading makes a big difference. And so if we're not too keen on it, our students are going to feel that. But if we are sharing what we read, if we're sharing the joy and the wonderful books that we want to pass along to someone else, that's going to inspire them too. We also know, if you're familiar with the organization NCTE, I'm a member of that and several organizations, but they've got some amazing position statements. And one of the position statements that they talks about the right for students to have access to materials and educational experience that promote inquiry, critical thinking, and diversity of thought. This organization's been fighting censorship since 1950, and these position statements help to reiterate the importance of having access to those opportunities.
So we want to think about today, who are Utah learners? As we think about reading, as we think about freedom of access to ideas, who are the learners here? 33% of Utah learners are economically disadvantaged, which means they may not have that much access to books and literacy materials outside of the schoolhouse or the library. 30% of Utah students are students of color, coming from all over the world, as well as native students to the state. 52% of Utah students attend college right after high school, and a much higher percentage of that eventually attend college. It's like 60 to 70%. And 69% of Utah's LGBTQ students have experienced discrimination at their school or in their lives. And here is a breakout of college participation rates of Utah high school graduates. You can see it differs by ethnicity, but you can also see that a lot of students go right from high school, but then all the way through to 10 years out, students are still starting in college, in their college experiences. So the education we're preparing them for, the inquiry, the freedom of ideas that they're accessing is important to them for a long time after they leave our schools.
So why do diverse books matter? And so we're sharing a couple of screenshots from a study that came from First Book back in the fall of 2023. And in that study, they talked to teachers, they talked to librarians, they talked to students, and they studied what was in those classrooms and in libraries. And they found that 53% of school-age children are children of color. And then they also uncovered the lack of diversity within the books that were in classrooms. I think about what Darren shared earlier when he shared that oneness is not sameness. I think, and I think about myself as a child growing up, I didn't see any Hispanic little girls in the books that I read. That just didn't exist at the time, and so it shouldn't have taken until I was nearly 30 years old to be able to see myself in a book. And so what we know now is that those books help us to see our lives, but it also introduces others into our lives and what we see and what we've experienced too. I love this quote from Jason Reynolds. He talks about, when we take away things from readers and we eliminate those narratives, we're not getting the whole picture of the world that we live in, and that is so, so true. But he also goes on to say that navigating the world in a way that is closed off, closed-minded, is poisonous. It means that we limit our vocabulary, which complicates how we communicate with one another. And so those stories are so invaluable because they help to open our eyes to things that maybe we didn't know about. And those can be life-changing for readers.
So we want to talk about the impacts of what many educators and librarians and students have been experiencing the last 3 years. We're from Texas, as we mentioned, and so I'm sure you're all aware that Texas and Florida were some of the leading states in passing bills that related to curriculum and to library materials. And over the last 3 years, we've seen impacts from that on us as educators, as well as on our students, like Christopher Lau. So a recent study from RAND that just came out a couple of weeks ago found that 63% of teachers in states with some sort of educational gag order self-censor themselves. And teachers in states, it's over 50% of teachers in states with no gag orders are censoring themselves. So it's affecting people in other states as well. 41% of teachers in the survey that Pew Internet Survey did said that their current political situation is impacting their instruction in some way. Choosing to teach something differently, skipping over a novel you might have taught in the past, etc. 42% of librarians admitted in a school library journal survey, and this was, only a year into the censorship kind of movement, that 42% of them have removed a book without any sort of formal review. And 65% of classroom teachers in the RAND survey said they have limited discussion in their classroom of social or political issues. So we're all in this moment, and we have to acknowledge that it's impacting us. And it also is going to take a lot of fortitude, courage, and adherence to our principles to meet this moment in the best way possible and to make it a dance and not a war. But the other thing, and maybe this is reassuring, maybe not, is that we know these are behaviors that people engage in when they're facing censorship at large in their society. This is a natural tendency, so we have to think deeply and reflect on how we're going to handle it. And so on this slide, which they'll put it back up in a minute, this is a story about a movement to remove books about secular humanism and parents groups. But if you go to the next slide, the teacher comments, this is a teacher from Plano, Texas, I think about what I'm doing twice, and she's in a Plano where nothing had been eliminated, but is there anything controversial in my lesson plan? If there is, I won't use it. I share this quote because it's from 1981, when there was a mini wave of censorship and concern. This is not a new reaction to censorship or to being asked to re-examine your practices and materials in your classrooms or libraries. But it passes.
It does.
That's the reassuring part I was trying to say is those moments come and they go. So we have to remember history teaches us those moments do pass and we can endure them and meet them.
Just taking a little longer this time. So these are censorship is censorship data that was released by ALA just this past week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. And you can see the steep rise from 22 to 23. And this graphic visually documents how, the steep climb and the unprecedented times that we're living in right now. And so because of this, that really just should cause us to continue to exercise caution, but also think through wisdom and think about the best practices, because there are impacts, and we can see that happening as we see educators that aren't even being impacted feeling that pressure and that fear and already self-censoring. Can you get the next one? So we know that 47% of these targeted titles for censorship were focused around the LGBTQ and BIPOC experiences, which again is silencing those voices and those perspectives. And we also know that in the states listed there, over 100 titles were challenged in those areas. And so that's significant. I think about where I was, and I mean, there was maybe no challenges, maybe one every 2 or 3 years. And in 1 year, we had 20. I mean, so it continues to happen. So it's just something to think about. And then, of course, PEN America documents a lot of the pressures, the mounting pressures to censor too. And they talk about the topics, or especially when you think about like physical abuse or violence, sexual assault, those kinds of topics that are being removed because it's scary for kids, and when we don't recognize that maybe young adults are needing to read and have access to this kind of material. And of course the information regarding diverse. And so I wanted to share this letter, or part of a letter that was written by author Christina Sutervant, who's an author in Texas. And she wrote a letter to Congress and talked about what would happen if books were removed and the message it would send. And again, she reiterates the dehumanizing form of erasure, because she highlights the fact that there's a specificity about removing certain topics, certain lives. And so what about those readers that are being impacted? And we're only thinking about the minority that's making a fuss versus just the majority that could be impacted by the removal.
And I think about Christopher, who spoke earlier here, and he saw the story of his history be erased, and how that must feel as a student to be told your story can't be on the shelf of a library. Does that tell that student they don't belong in that school? It's a real question we have to ask ourselves.
Right. So this is a lot, and so I'm going to ask everybody to just briefly stand up. And we're going to take a deep breath together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Deep breathe in. And then just breathe out. And you can sit down. I know you've been sitting for a while. But I think the thing to think about is it's just to remind us that this is hard work. It's exhaustive work. I know I have friends that check in on me and say, "Are you resting, Becky? Are you resting?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm resting." But it just speaks to how we need to lean on one another, and we need to take care of ourselves too.
So that brings us to big idea 3. We've outlined the situation, but we need to know, how are we going to address this moment? And how can we continue to build our capacity to be educators at a time of a lot of stress from different things around us?
All good.
So we want to be as proactive and prepared as we can. And some of you are in situations where you're dealing with this on a daily basis, and some of you may be in a situation where it hasn't impacted your teaching or your library services or your leadership that much. But it's important, no matter where you sit, to start being prepared and have a plan. So we're going to talk about what you can do, and the first thing is to learn. We should model learning, and learning is also a way we can grow in this situation.
And I think that also includes not learning just ourselves, but learning from one another. I think we tend to want to just think about what about just us, but what can we learn from surrounding districts and people around us, and take that with us too.
So one thing we've learned in this moment is about triggers. So stepping back from reacting to a situation and understanding this idea of triggers is so important. And I know some of you may be familiar with Jennifer Lagarde, who's an amazing, amazing library leader. And she co-wrote a book with Darren Hudgens from Oregon called Developing Digital Detectives. And in that book, it's for working with students, but it has a lot of lessons for us as adults about information literacy. But how do we react when we're triggered? When we hear certain words, we start reacting to those words. And a first step towards being proactive is moving out of reaction. So I really recommend her book. And this is another book that we recommend for sort of self-growth to learn how to handle these situations.
Yeah, and in this book, High Conflict, Amanda Ripley talks about how there are groups of people that exploit high conflict. And it's not to say that conflict isn't important, it is, because it helps us to move, but there are some people that just want to create conflict. And that's the part that's probably not productive. And so this book is a great way to learn about how to break down, how to address it, and how to proceed after you know what you've learned.
And then one thing I especially want to call out is shame and fear. We're in a situation where triggering words get said that causes us to, as an educator, feel shame or fear, or to feel isolated, like we're the only one this is happening to. And Brené Brown has great work on shame and fear, and I think that something we're really missing out on is doing this work with our faculties and our leadership. How do we react when we feel like we're being shamed? And how do we react when we're in fear? And then learning as human beings how we overcome that so that we're not reacting, that we are using our professional tools to handle a situation in front of us, and that we're not going into panic mode or reactivity mode. And so we're not acting first, we're thinking first. So I really recommend her work on shame and fear. And if you're also needing help, you can ask AI.
Yep.
I had to mention AI in this session, right? I actually asked ChatGPT what messages work when you're trying to talk to people about censorship and why freedom of ideas is important. And it generated an excellent list. So if you're in a panic, call ChatGPT. The next thing is about being prepared. If you're a firefighter, you don't just show up one day and fight a fire. And that's what's happening too much in some of our schools. You know, does your school have a policy? Are your administrators aware of what to do? Do your secretaries know what to do if someone calls into the school with a complaint? All of that. So firefighters train, they do mock fires, they simulate fires, they have equipment. They don't just suddenly show up one day and fight a fire. So we need to think of ourselves as being prepared and how we can prepare ourselves. And that means every educator from top to bottom needs to be prepared.
And then, of course, that includes maximizing our family and educator partnerships. And so where are those opportunities to build partnerships with parents? Especially for librarians, typically, you know, parents connect with the teacher. But with the librarian, there's an opportunity there for librarians to connect with parents, to teach them about policies, to teach them about procedures, to show them how they can have get information regarding what's in their students' libraries. And so, you know, finding respectful, reasonable ways to collaborate, showing them who you are can make a difference. And then, of course, sharing information like resources like Unite Against Book Bans. They've got some great action toolkits. I know as educators, we have people that reach out to us and say, I want to know how I can support intellectual freedom. I want to know more about how I can support you know, librarians. Resources like Unite Against Book Bans, they have toolkits so that parents can reach out to school board members. There's talking points, already pre-made letters. And if you are going through a book challenge, they actually just posted book resumes. And so different Books that have been targeted are now listed on the book resume section, and so you can download those resources, the reviews that were shared, and that list will continue to grow. And then, of course, our group, we also have resources on our website, templates to write, talking points, and things you can do to organize.
And we also, like I said before, you can ask AI. This is PI-AI, Personal Assistant AI. But I asked, what should I do if a book was censored at my school? And this is sort of directed almost towards a student. Talk to your teachers and find out why the book was censored. It gives a really great list. So again, use any resource you have, but know that there are toolkits already pre-built out there for you. So many organizations have already built toolkits with how to talk about this in a coherent way.
Don't have to start from scratch.
That's right. And it's also really important. Remember I talked about that moment from 1981. We're students of history. We're aware of the Red Scare in the 1950s. So an important part of this moment is actually the historical part of it. We need to be documenting what happens, because those documents will tell a story for historians 10, 20, 50 years from now who are looking back and trying to understand how we went from 300 or 400 book challenges a year to 5,000 book challenges in a year. So it's important to report censorship. ALA has a place you can report it. And if you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to do it yourself. You can ask someone else. You can even email us and say, hey, will you report this in my state? It can be done anonymously, but just documenting that's so important so that we have the truth documented for historical reasons.
And another thing you can do is to continue to communicate well. And so I think about taking control of the narrative, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with librarian Casey Boyd. She's in Washington, D.C., and she talks a lot about telling the library story. And I mean, I would even go on further to say the classroom story. You know, if we don't tell our stories of what's happening, of the great things that are happening, somebody's going to tell that story, and it's not going to be accurate. So tell that story and take control of the narrative.
And right now, the narrative's taking control of us.
Yes.
So this is the most proactive we can do. As you talked about stories this morning, telling those stories. Stories are compelling. They humanize us.
Yeah.
Oh,
go back.
Yeah, sorry. And I love this quote because as much as data helps tell a story and it's important, sometimes the most convincing thing is a story. People want to have faith in you. They want to believe in something. And we can give them something to believe in, and that is the education of their students and that we care about student learning and student lives. And be a good practitioner. That's another way of communicating well. There's a lot of things spread on Facebook and through gossip and private channels. We don't need to be repeating it, and we don't need to be engaging in it, because that just contributes to the general state of misinformation.
And I think we also need to leverage academic rigor with our students. And so I have some screenshots of our band book club. It's the Vandergrift Band Book Club. This is their Instagram post. And so due to all of the book challenges that were happening in our English classrooms, our language arts classrooms in high school, those students were not happy about what was happening. And so they formed a club. Because in our school district, if students want to form a club, they've got rules to follow. They have to come up with, have their little designated members, president, whatever, their little meeting ideas, whatever. And they formed a club, it was approved, and now they have all these followers. And they actually, at the time when this started, ended up inspiring other students to form their band book clubs. And they read those books that were removed, and then they told how those students, why those stories mattered and why they needed to be returned to the classroom.
And I want to call out something. Look at the text on these slides. The academic rigor that these students in high school, they were sophomores when they started.
They were sophomores at the time.
Bring to examining books and the meaning of these books and the validity of the books is amazing. But as adults, we aren't always bringing this same rigor. And sometimes our school leadership isn't bringing this same academic rigor. We are academic institutions. And if anyone should bring academic rigor to this situation, it should be us. So I challenge all of us to model after these amazing students.
I'm sharing a slide. I was in New York last week talking to an all-girls school, and they had a conference on civic engagement. And so the topic was book bans, and we had a breakout activity. And so I had about 2 sections of 15 students talking about book bans. And so I created this See, Think, Wonder activity, and I was just in awe of what they were aware of, what they wondered about. Their questions were really deep, and then they were really curious and didn't understand. And what, to me, this demonstrates is that our students are paying attention. They recognize that they're being impacted, but they wonder, why isn't anybody asking us? Why isn't anybody including us? And what we're seeing is that they're going to speak up at school board meetings. They're leveraging their voice that they have, that we as educators say, use your voice. They're doing it. But it's just so inspiring to see them rise up to the challenge and to do these great things.
And See, Think, Wonder's a great, it's Harvard, I believe. They've got a bunch of thinking strategies, and they have a great set of strategies for leading conversations on difficult and interesting topics.
So anybody familiar with Adam Grant? I love this author. He's amazing. His book, Think Again, really talks a lot about an open mind. And I think about what was shared earlier about less war, more dance. Same thing here. I mean, and Adam talks about how we need to treat our opinions as a hypothesis and our decisions as an experiment, and thinking about how we're going to approach a discussion, maybe being more curious rather than argumentative, because those are the opportunities to learn and to grow and to understand. I've had different phone calls at different times with people coming to me with disinformation, and I'll ask, tell me where you found that, and then just explain the misinformation and give the accurate information. And people calm down. Everybody's like, I didn't know that. And then I offer my name and phone number. Call me back if there's another question, because I want to build these relationships, and I also want to dispel all that misinformation. So those are important opportunities, because those people will turn around and go back and share what they learned.
I was really inspired by something Richard Culata said in his keynote yesterday about acceptable use plans, and he was talking about one with 36 don'ts and 0 do's. And I thought, this is exactly what is happening to schools and libraries right now in terms of the legislature. All over the country, they're giving us don'ts, but they're not giving us do's. What do they want us to do for their students to help them grow and flourish and innovate? So let's flip that question when we talk to people about this. What do people want us to do for and on behalf of their students? So another thing important now, to connect yourself to other people who are experiencing what you're experiencing, other people who are stepping up to face these challenges, and build yourself a support network wherever people are, whether it's across states, within the state. And there are advocates that it's helpful to know that are out there working on these issues for you. All of these organizations listed here have toolkits, they have support to offer you. You can pick up the phone and call some of these organizations and actually get in-person advice. And so we just want you to know that there's a lot of people out there who care about the First Amendment and intellectual freedom for our students.
And we also want to encourage you to consider your circles of influence. I know certain people, the people I know certain people, and so and so and so forth, right? So there's a ripple effect. So when I share information, I always encourage those people I share with to share with 5 more people. And just imagine the exponential actions that can happen when we share with the people that know us and they share with the people that know them. And so don't ever presume that it doesn't make a difference, because it does. Just like, you know, I think the connections that we have as humans are powerful. And so how can we leverage them, especially in this time that's very, very challenging for all of us?
So when we think about students here in Utah and what we want their futures to look like, we all share actually common goals across a state. And that is, I think everyone wants their children, their students, to have even better lives than their own, and to have enriching futures where they can dream what they want to dream, where they can access the ideas they're interested in, and where they can innovate. And so we all do share common ground, even though sometimes that we miss that.
Next.
And we have to remember that what drives the future is the ability to explore. And that's what libraries are about, that's what reading's about, that's what classrooms are about. Libraries and books build empathy for students, that thing that Richard talked about yesterday that AI cannot yet, replace, that empathy that is so important. Exploration drives us to build and grow, but we have to have the freedom of access to ideas that our inquiry is interested in and that our students are interested in, for us to grow and to explore.
And I just want to also add that when I think back in our history as a country, our first libraries were established to have a place to debate ideas. And so there was a lot of conversation about what books could be in those original libraries. But even our founding fathers said it was important to have all ideas there, because that was one of the reasons they were starting this new country to begin with.
Right. So this foundational belief in libraries goes back to Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, who really founded the first American libraries. Thomas Jefferson's library collection became the Library of Congress, one of the biggest libraries in the world. So this whole idea of exploring ideas and freedom of access goes back to our very founding as a country. It is a foundational value that we hold. So we want to thank you so much for having us here today and being able to talk to you and share this common dream that we have for our students, and this hope that freedom is something that they can have in their futures.
Yeah, because we know that we're stronger together, so don't ever forget that. So we want to close with one more thing.
And we want you to go out, we want to encourage you to go out with hope, because we don't want to leave this presentation without hope and belief in each other, belief in what we can do together. And we always want to ask you to continue to build the dreamers of this state and the dreamers of this country.
Thank you. Here we go.
We believe it. Look who we are. We are the dreamers. We make it happen. 'Cause we can see it. Here's to the ones that keep the passion. Respect. Oh yeah. Here's to the ones that can't imagine. Respect. Oh yeah. we make it happen. Guess we believe it. Look who we are the dreamers. We make it happen, 'cause we can see it. Here's to the ones that keep the passion, respect, oh yeah. Here's to the ones that can't imagine, respect, oh yeah.
Go out and have a great day. We are the dreamers. Have a great day, everyone. And join us for our session for the nitty-gritty of intellectual freedom next. We have a great panel with authors, librarians, teachers, so it'll be excellent if you want to take a deep dive.
Thank you.